Okay, so the topic for today is, why is it so important to me personally to help families? And I'm going to address this in part because we are doing another global summit this fall, the title of which is Healing Family Trauma, subtitled Your Bridge to the Future. And so in addressing why I think family is so important in healing families, there will be two parts to this. One is observations that I've made over the decades of doing this work, leading trainings and training individuals, training families. When I was working with the Canadian Aboriginals, I had the privilege of training as many as 10 people from the same family, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, grandparents, grandchildren, cousins, nieces, nephews, and that was truly awesome. I also have had the opportunity to train families. The McKinley family in California, Roger McKinley came in. I'll talk about him in some detail. He had 4 adult children, and they trained, and 3 of the 4 in-laws trained, and then he started on the grandchildren. At one point, John Butcher, the CEO of Precious Moments, asked me to move Biocybernaut to his family estate in St. Charles, Illinois, and I trained many of the members of that large family, as well as people in the company, the COO, the creative director, and of course, John's father, Sam Butcher, who started the family-based company. And then included in that, I will tell stories and talk about individuals who have done the training where it was clear that the immense traumas that were weighing them down, sapping their energy, performance, and their joy of life were a direct result of a dysfunctional family. Then I will also talk about personally what it means to me when I'm presently single. I have been in relationships that have lasted as long as 10 years, 6 years, things like that. And I know that when I am in relationship, of course, I'm much happier. And I'm also more productive, more creative. I generate more scientific research, more patents, and I bring more joy to all of the trainings that I lead. So the importance of family is immense. Now, we have biological families, but we also have extended families. I make every effort to run Biocybernaut as a family. We have had a training center in Canada and Germany, and all of the trainers at those centers have, in fact, been here in Sedona, the world headquarters of Biocybernaut. And when a staff member has a birthday, it's almost always that I bake the birthday cake and take requests for, what kinds of frosting. Do they want cream cheese or chocolate buttercream? And then we put one candle in the middle of the cake because it's the first year of the rest of their lives. And remember, Ram Dass said, if you want to live high, you have to live outside of time. So we don't have numbered birthdays at Biocybernaut, but they are special, wonderful days. And so we celebrate as a family. Sometimes we even have a dinner to go along with the birthday celebration. So in terms of why it's important to heal the family, it is a huge formative influence on children. And children have an almost unlimited capacity to absorb and to benefit from loving attention. And, you know, there's been probably 7,000 people who've done Biocybernaut training, not even counting the ones that come back and do the higher level trainings. You know, there's 24 levels of the alpha training, and 24 levels of the theta training, and 18 levels of the delta training. And that doesn't even include sort of off menu trainings like the alpha theta training for people who've done both alpha and theta and want to do both simultaneously, or the very recently introduced slow delta plus fast delta training. And so there's a lot of trainings available. And I've seen people in a lot of different settings dealing with a lot of different kinds of problems. And one of the most common problems that boys face is that they don't get nearly enough attention from their father. The father's away, he's at work. If he's at home, he's, you know, not giving the boy the attention that the boy wants and needs. Now, in the process of forgiveness, we learn, because the process of forgiveness involves people making the charge and then going in and feeling the pain. Then when they get enough, when the alpha drops sufficiently to demonstrate that they have connected with the pain enough to be able to pull it out, then they decide to forgive. They look for a gift or a lesson. They walk in the person's shoes, hopefully go all the way to love, hug the person, hang out with them. And at some point, when their alpha stops increasing and the scores again go white, then they go to their judges and ask, have I done all the forgiveness on this topic that I can do for now? If even one of the judges says no, they go back, feel the pain again, and start over. Maybe look for a deeper gift or a deeper lesson. Now, if the judges say yes and they bask, they do the love algorithm. I love you, and they say their name. I love you, and they say their name. And one of the things that I've seen a lot is that in boys, the absence of the father, which is very painful, and I get to see how very painful it is, when they look for some good that might have come from it. One typical gift that comes up is early independence. And so early independence can benefit a kid. It, of course, can make life more difficult when their partner wants them to be able to be emotionally vulnerable, and they kind of never learned that because they had to become independent, strong, tough early on. And so the healing can occur. People re-script. I'll tell you one story. It was a university professor. She had she was top of her field. She'd written 3 or 4 best-selling books in her field. And she was highly acclaimed. And she walked around all the time feeling terribly unworthy. And this, she was like really terribly lost in feelings of unworthy. And here she's a tenured professor at a major university, highly respected in her field. Well, where did this come from? Well, it came from lack of acknowledgement from her father, whom she adored. In high school, she came back home after her first semester, freshman year high school, with straight A's. And she rushed to her father, wanting to show him her report card. And he was too busy. He couldn't even look at it. So she doubled down and, she got into activities. And each year, each semester, she would have more activities and still straight A's. And she'd come home and daddy would be too busy to even look at her report card. Now, many girls would get into drugs and they'd get pregnant and, anything to get attention. But what this girl did was she just doubled down. And her senior year, she's president of the student council, editor of the yearbook, first chair in her instrument in the band, soloist in the choir. And if there was, I think she was head of the cheerleaders, there was any activity that a girl could do in high school, she did it and she was the leader of it. In addition, she got all straight A's in college prep courses. And so filled with joy, she rushes home to show her father. He's up on the roof fixing. And he's too busy to come down. And so it was the last straw for her and she absolutely crashed. And so she made up in her mind that she was not worthy, that it didn't matter how much she achieved, that daddy was not going to be interested, and she adored him. And so she obviously had to be not worthy. Well, she'd done all this work and, gotten all these grades. So of course she's, admitted to college and she's got all these study habits. And even though she feels unworthy, she breezes through college and she's given a scholarship to grad school and she graduates, does advanced work. And now she's a professor at a major university, but still she walks around every day feeling totally unworthy. So that is a serious problem coming from her family. And so, of course, I had her do forgiveness on her father. And she also rescripted. So now she runs home with this incredible activities list and straight A's in all these college advanced placement courses. And daddy's up on the roof fixing. But in the rescripting, he stops his work. He comes down the ladder. He looks at all of these incredible achievements. He's absolutely astonished. He had no idea because he hadn't paid any attention for 4 years. And he picks her up and swings her around in his arms and whoops and hollers and calls in all the neighbors and throws a huge block party for her. And so the unworthiness was gone. She had rescripted the relationship with the most important member of her family. And so that was really powerful. And I tell you another story. It was about a father who brought his early 20s son to training. The son was a marijuana addict. Now, I know marijuana is not physiological addicting, but the son was doing marijuana pretty much constantly. And the father strongly disapproved, but his son is over 18, so, there's nothing he can do except, call the police, and he's disinclined to do that. And so they go through the training together, and they discover the father had no idea that his son's drug use was a direct response to not having had the attention from his father that he so desperately craved. And so the father was astonished, and he said he was sorry, and he did major forgiveness on himself in front of his son. The reporting after the private chamber work is done in a small group. And so the son got to see the immense grief and remorse that his father felt. And so the son's relationship with the father was healed. and the emotional lack was undone, and the love between the father and the son was restored, and the son didn't any longer want to use marijuana. And so people do things for reasons, and very often those reasons go back to childhood. And we had a woman at one point who was never touched by her mother, and she had enormous traumas as a result of this. And so when she came for training, she found that it was necessary to spend multiple days forgiving her mother. The importance of touch of a child by the mother and by others is so incredibly important. We can refer to a study done by Harlow with monkeys. In fact, so famous, called Harlow's monkey study. Baby monkeys were taken away from their mothers at birth and raised in cages where they had two wireframe surrogate mother monkeys. One was just a wireframe that had a bottle in it where the baby monkey could cling to the wireframe and nurse, get nourishment. And the other simulated a mother monkey, wireframe shaped like a mother monkey, was covered with soft terry cloth. And so what they were astonished to discover was the baby monkeys spent almost all of their time clinging to the soft terry cloth surrogate mother monkey, and would only briefly go over to the unsoft wireframe where there was the bottle where they would feed. As soon as they had fed, they'd go back where they could have soft touch. Now, the absence of a real mother monkey was, in a real monkey family, was catastrophic. When these monkeys were bred, the mother monkeys who had grown up, in the study with the wireframes, in some cases didn't recognize their babies as theirs. They wouldn't nurse them. They were mean to the babies. And so the importance of family cannot be overstated. There are both statable and unstatable, conscious and unconscious reasons why people need to be in a family. Now, we know it's said that, it takes a village to raise a child. And so in the past, people grew up, I certainly grew up part of my childhood in an extended family with grandparents in the home. We were on a farm in southern Minnesota. And so there were, I lived with my cousins and aunts and uncles, and it was wonderful, the extended family. There's a nurturance that happens. Now, if people are an only child, or they have lived away from their family, then it's important to create a sense of family wherever they are, with friendship networks. And I make every effort to run Biocybernaut like a family. And we have a hug culture at Biocybernaut. And as I mentioned, we celebrate birthdays. And in every way, we seek to bring a family connectedness. It's not a job. Biocybernaut is not a job. It's really a vocation. And the way that we help people it's so obvious. People come in stressed, tattered, sometimes emotionally torn, wounded. And in the course of the work that they do, they visibly heal. They straighten, color comes back into their face. The empty eyes suddenly are sparkling. And people radiate an incredible joy. Recently, a woman spent a whole day forgiving her mother. And the other trainees and co-trainer, I was doing this with a co-trainer, Brian Alcorn, everybody commented how the woman looked so different. She looked more beautiful, she looked younger, her face was radiant, her skin was glowing, her eyes were flashing. And this is a result of having healed a traumatic relationship with the mother, key element of her family. So why is it important to heal the family? And first of all, if the family has, disintegrated or moved away, I can recall training a woman here who had grown up in Brazil and trained here in Sedona. And she had an estranged brother back in Brazil. He was the black sheep of the family. He had showed up at a family wedding high on some kind of drug and had disrupted the wedding, ruined it for everybody. And so everybody cut him off. So the woman, this comes up with her mood scales that there's an issue, anger and resentment, and okay, well, who is it? Well, it's my brother, and what's the story? And the story comes out. So then she does forgiveness on it. I coach her to do forgiveness. So she does forgiveness. And the very next day, that brother contacted her with an apology on Facebook. We had another beautiful incident where there was a married couple that came to Sedona for training. The husband was a Caucasian and his wife was a Singaporean Chinese. And the woman had a terrible relationship with her aunt. The story was her mother was an identical twin. And she and her identical twin sister were married on the same day, and they both gave birth to a single girl child a couple days apart. And the mothers were close and the cousins were closer. Well, then the mother of our woman here in training died. And so her aunt brought her into her home and raised her. But suddenly the aunt was very mean. Like, she would take the two girls clothes shopping and she would only buy clothes for her daughter. And if her daughter would loan a piece of clothes to her cousin and the mother found out about it, both girls would be severely punished. So as you can imagine, this girl got away from that aunt and out of Singapore as soon as she could. She got married, moved to the United States. And so when the story came out, because the mood scales detect negative and positive emotions that are in the unconscious. And so when I quizzed her about it, turned up that there was this mean aunt back in Singapore. And she hadn't communicated with that aunt since she left Singapore years ago. So I said, okay, well, you need to forgive your aunt. So she forgives the aunt. And the next day she comes in with a big smile. That aunt had contacted her with a big, long apology email. And when they looked at this timestamp on the email, it was sent about 3 hours, adjusting for the difference in Sedona time versus Singapore time. The email was sent about 3 hours after she had done the forgiveness in her chamber in Sedona. So the effects of the forgiveness work reach out all the way across the world and beneficially serve to heal relationships. I can remember a father-son that came for training. This was, I think, in my last California center, about 2007. The father was an extremely successful businessman, and his son didn't have much interest in business. and was pursuing a spiritual path, studying different kinds of meditation. And in the course of the work they did, the father broke down and cried, and his son is hugging him and patting him on the back. And what came out of this was that the son is now training to be able to step into his father's shoes and to help run the business. So the connectedness between people who do the training together is awesome. And in addition to just training together, which of course is even more powerful than family members training separately and doing forgiveness separately, which can have very powerful healing effects. When the family members can come together, the healing is even deeper and it's more profound because they get to observe each other, acknowledging the pain that they caused, and they can assess the depth, the profundity, and the sincerity of the forgiveness, especially the self-forgiveness that they each do to undo the contributions that they made to disrupting the normal relationships within the family. And so the opportunity to do deep work together profoundly heals family issues. And I'll share a personal story involving me and my brother, John. John and I were very different. I went through high school as a scholar because in the summer following my 8th grade, my dad brought me into his office and he said, "Jim, you're a smart kid and you're probably going to want to go to college. I'm here to tell you, I'm not going to give you a dime. If you want to go to college, you're going to have to study hard and get a scholarship." So I studied till 2 a.m. every night for 4 years, even on weekends. I didn't date. I did take someone to the senior prom. I was freshman year, I was on the gymnastics team. I was very good. I could do backflips on the mat and on the trampoline. I was #1 man on side horse, #2 man on rings. I could do the iron cross. But then my German grades started to suffer. Every day we had a test. We had to learn 25 words. And instead of getting 100%, I was getting 99 or 98%. So I went to my gymnastics coach and told him I would have to drop out of gymnastics. He was very sad. He was also my fencing coach. In 3 weeks, I got to the point I could reliably defoil him, get the foil out of his hand. So he was sorry to lose me, but I had a mission, which was get a scholarship. The only team I was on in high school was the debate team. I was also on the debate team in college. And we were good enough that we went to nationals in high school and in college. And so, that was, in a sense, sharpening the intellect. And it helped in some of my other studies. But I pretty much gave up everything in order to get a scholarship. And so the opportunity to have relationships didn't come along until I was in college. And I was on scholarship there, so I had to maintain my grades. I lived in a fraternity, Phi Kappa Theta. And so I could only be away developing relationship on weekends. And starting the summer after my sophomore year, I stayed in Pittsburgh. I didn't go to the family farm. And I developed a relationship that lasted for 10 years. It was enormously beneficial spiritually and intellectually, emotionally, sexually, very fulfilling in every way. And there have been times where I've not been in relationship and times where I have been. And I know that the evidence is clear that I'm more productive, more creative when I am in relationship. There's a fulfillment of, I think at one point in the Bible, God having made Adam says it's not good that man should be alone. So we thrive more fully, more completely when we are partnered, when we are in a family, whether it's whether you have children or you don't. Some people say that I have 7,000 children. People who've gone through the Biocybernaut trainings have, in fact, benefited mentally, emotionally, spiritually from the work that I have created. And our head of our marketing, Doug Holt, said at the beginning of this, he said, many people don't know that you and Biocybernaut are the same. They think, well, there's Dr. Jim Hardt and there's Biocybernaut, but really there's not much difference. And so for Biocybernaut to be run like a family, it's because the importance of family is so incredibly clear to me that the level of caring, I mean, it might go a little sideways here. Recently, I've started to go public with some of my avocations. Many people don't know that I'm an amateur climatologist, an amateur seismologist, and an amateur volcanologist, studying volcanoes. And I've recently started to reach out. I just did a public presentation here in Sedona, open to the public, free, on climate and food. We're going into another grand solar minimum, and it's going to get very cold on the planet. The Ukrainian-born solar astrophysicist, Valentina Zarkova, who studies the 4 major magnetic fields of the sun, has predicted that at the bottom of the cold cycle, 2028 to 2033, it'll be so cold on planet Earth that food won't grow outdoors anywhere north of the 45th parallel, which is all of Canada, the American states of Washington and Montana and North Dakota, and England, Scotland, Wales, Finland, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, most of France, all of Germany, all of Poland, most of Russia. And so how do you survive something like this? Well, Biocybernauts will survive because we are a family. And they all know that it's my plan to take care of them. And it really makes a difference. All the Biocybernauts know that our building here is self-sufficient in terms of energy. We're solar powered. We make more electricity than we can use. We sell it back into the grid. We have ordered and will be soon taking delivery of an aquaponics food forever system from Grace and Oliver. Grace has been one of my trainers since July of 2005. And she and her ex-aerospace engineer husband, Oliver Duffy, have created a grow system, an aquaponics grow system, where the vegetarian fish, the tilapia, produce waste, which is liquefied and feeds the plants. It's a almost closed system. And you can even feed the tilapia, grass. It doesn't have to be grain. They are vegetarians. And so the idea that the people at Biocybernaut know that it's my plan to take care of them as though they were my brothers and sisters or, children or parents or whatever. It's important to back up these nice words and nice feelings with actual plans. And so we have plans afoot where we're creating the means in all future Biocybernaut centers, for example. It is my plan to have an aquaponic system sized so that it can grow enough food for all the staff, for all of the people who come for training, with an additional 25% that we can use to barter with the local community. And so, it's a full suite of activities that we're engaged in. I know that someone will come along soon, wanting to be and able to be a partner for me. And I know that I'll transition into higher gear in terms of creativity, productivity, and happiness. And so heal the family. The family is the essential core of how we are socialized as human beings. During World War II, the Nazis did experiments. They were wanting blue-eyed blondes as the master race. And so they had breeding farms where blonde women were inseminated by blonde men, and the children were raised like cattle, like an institution. And they were vapid, they were flat emotionally. They lacked essential elements of humanity. And so why? Because they didn't have a family. The state is not an appropriate substitute for a family. And doesn't have to be biological. People who care. I mean, I've worked with a lot of people who are adopted, and when the adoptive parents are loving and caring and attentive, and the people thrive. It doesn't have to be their biological parents. And so at Biocybernaut, we understand family to be a large umbrella that stretches over all of us who call ourselves Biocybernauts. And it's a protective umbrella designed to shield us from what is coming. In my role as climatologist, I've been studying the recurring catastrophe cycles. The grand solar minimum that is onrushing last occurred 400 years ago, from 1645 to 1715. It marked the collapse of the famous and powerful Ming dynasty in China, because without food, you can't support the army that's needed to maintain the empire and the civilization. And so we will have massive shortages of food. There will be likely people starve to death. The absence of fertilizer, the unavailability of fertilizer just in Africa alone will cause the failure to grow food that would normally feed 100 million Africans. Well, without that fertilizer being applied, food for 100 million Africans will not be produced. So who are they going to eat? And I don't mean to be flip there, but when people can't get food, they lose their, shall we say, politeness. And so difficult times, the way through it is to emphasize love, connectedness, caring, and of course, incredible creativity and intelligence, all of which are enhanced by the Biocybernaut trainings. The importance of family in some ways in human civilization is paramount. And any attempts to destroy, as in to say, oh, well, boys can have babies, or to say that gender is optional. All of these are direct and indirect ways of undermining the family, which undermines civilization, which contributes to a depopulation agenda. With nature doing things that it does periodically, like grand solar minimum, we're also undergoing a reversal of the Earth's magnetic field. It's been declining for 150 years. The rate of decline is increasing. And I just finished a book last night called magnetic excursions and mass extinctions, which is allowing me for the first time to put together like the Gothenburg magnetic excursion, the Champs magnetic excursion. These seem to occur at about 12,000 year intervals. And Ben Davidson, in his book, The Next End of the World, subtitled Rebirth of Catastrophism, points out that our sun is a recurring micronova, roughly every 12,000 years. We're coming up on that again. And so by looking at the magnetic reversals and mass extinctions, together with Ben Davidson's work on the 12,000 year catastrophe cycle, I'm beginning to learn more about what life on Earth is like during one of these events. And it's something that we need to work together as a family in order to survive. When Yugoslavia fell apart as a country, and there was a terrible war in Serbia, what the people learned was that units of people needed to be about 15 in order to survive. Some needed to be sleeping, others needed to be on guard, some needed to be foraging, some needed to be preparing food. And so family is extremely important. One or two people are not going to be a viable unit. And so please identify who your friends and family are and begin to work with them. I'll be doing more, been asked to do more publicly to share the knowledge that I've accumulated over the years on climatology. For example, I've known for about 5 years that during grand solar minima, there are, last one was 1645 to 1715. It was called the Little Ice Age in Europe. It's when the Ming Dynasty collapsed in China. I've known that during such periods, there were big increases in the number of earthquakes and the number of volcanoes, but I didn't know why. And it was last November where I learned why. The mechanism of the grand solar minimum is the sun's magnetic fields, 4 of them go out of phase, get weak, and normally the sun's magnetic field extends way out past Pluto, deflecting incoming cosmic rays. When it's weak, those dangerous high energy particles penetrate to the inner solar system, hit the upper atmosphere of Earth where they form the seed particles of clouds. This is the means of the cooling because these low-level clouds cool the planet, and none of the climate science agencies' models include the effects of low-level clouds, not NASA's model, not NOAA's model, that's National Oceanic and Atmospheric Agency, and not the IPCC, which is the International Panel on Climate Change. None of them include anything in their model about the effects of low-level clouds, which is what drives the cooling. And the clouds are produced by increased flux of cosmic rays, which strikes molecules in our upper atmosphere and creates seed particles for clouds. But I also learned just last November that this increased flux of cosmic rays also includes muons, which penetrate deep into the Earth and are absorbed preferentially by silica-rich magma, which heats up, like microwave heats up food, and causes explosive volcanism. So you get more volcanoes. Right now, there are more volcanoes going off simultaneously on Earth than any time since 400 years ago, when we had the last grand solar minimum. This flux of muons also lubricates earthquake faults, warms and softens the rock, so you get more earthquakes. So there are many reasons in the natural world for things to be tough. How do we survive? We survive as a family. If not a biological family, then a family of people whom we love and care about, who have our backs and whose backs we have. This is why all biocybernauts know that they are welcome to shelter in at any Biocybernaut Center, which are designed to be able to be sustainable. And I should note that after the fall of the Roman Empire, which historians rate as the greatest setback to human civilization, in this interglacial at least, because there have been previous civilizations in previous interglacials that have fallen. But the fall of the Roman Empire was the greatest setback. Now, it was caused by two things. One, a cooling and also a plague that came out of China. The Romans were successful and they sent their ships as far away as China in search of trade. And they brought back rats that were infested with fleas that carried the organism Yersinia pestis, which we know as bubonic plague. The Romans had no sense of disease, no science of disease. And so their thriving cities simply emptied. People were starving and they were dying of an unknown disease, and they just abandoned their cities with clothes still in the closet, food still in the pantries, and they just fled. And so we had a plague come out of China. We're going into a cooling, a very serious cooling, this one with the reversal of the Earth's magnetic field. Ben Davidson says two things you never want to have happen at the same time are a grand solar minimum and a reversal of the Earth's magnetic field. Well, that's where we are now. So the importance of family is heightened. We will only survive, and we will survive and thrive by coming together as a family. Now, families have experienced a lot of trauma. We can heal that, and we do heal that trauma at Biocybernaut. And so this fall in November, we're doing another global summit on healing the family. And I'd like to ask you to keep track of the dates. We haven't exactly fixed the dates. We'll do that in concert with the speakers. And so I want to thank you all for being a part of this process of healing yourself and your family and preparing so that we can survive as a species, as families, and as individuals. We want to do more than survive, we want to thrive. And so the watchwords of Biocybernaut are openness, honesty, integrity, love, forgiveness, and appreciation. And so these are attributes which will benefit any relationship, whether it's a scientific team, a sports team, a business team, or a family. And so let's heal the family. Let's come together. Let's practice forgiveness and love. And I'll see you here on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and maybe even at the Biocybernaut centers. Thank you, and God bless you.
Hi, I'm Tony Robbins. Listen, if you are looking to improve your brain, your psyche, your ability, your emotions, your ability to really maximize your performance, and you want to really dig into your brain, my dear friend Dr. Jim Hardt and his Biocybernaut program is extraordinary. I've been through it myself. My wife Sage has, members of my family have, and we found it to be truly extraordinary. But it is not for the faint at heart. Unless you're dead serious about really taking things to the next level, don't bother. We went through the Alpha program designed to maximize your ability to create alpha waves. And it was challenging and it was incredibly rewarding. And I'd recommend it to anybody serious about improving the quality of their lives or including the quality of their family lives as well. So check out Cybernaut, check out Dr. Jim Hardt. And if you do, I think you'll be really, really pleased. So. And the entire time you are learning to think and how you think these electrodes create sounds. And you learn how to put yourself in the zone of alpha. But it's a bitch. It's horrible. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody that wants easy experiences, but I'd recommend it to anybody that wants to grow immensely. And by the first day, I'm like, who do I got to shoot to get out of this thing? Oh, it's me. I'm the one that did this shit. Right? But by the end of the week, all three of us were able to go into this state of alpha. And if you're familiar with alpha, the best way I can describe alpha is there's no problem that can't be solved in alpha. Because every problem that we have was created by us.
Thank you for being here and absorbing this information about the science of brainwaves and about the stories of people whose lives have been beneficially altered, improved by doing brainwave training at Biocybernaut. And now I'm reaching out to you to invite you to come and be a part of the Biocybernaut adventure. Biocybernauts are to inner space what astronauts are to outer space. So come and adventure with us. And if you'd like to leave a comment on the videos, you can do that, or there's a link you can click if you'd like to learn more. We welcome you to Biocybernaut.